Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Carly P. Riley Show. Today on the show, we are talking about what happens now to Sam Bankman-Fried. As most of you know, Sam Bankman-Fried was sentenced to 25 years in prison by Judge Kaplan a couple weeks ago. So we're going to talk about where is he going to serve that time, how long will he realistically serve, and Sam gave an interview, his first interview since the sentencing, to ABC News. So we are going to talk about what he said and didn't say there. All right, folks. So like I said, Sam was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Judge Kaplan recommended that Sam serve his time in a medium or low facility prison near the San Francisco Bay Area so that Sam's family would easily be able to visit. Sam's family is based in the Bay Area. Now, Judge Kaplan recommended a medium to low security prison. Perhaps this is somewhat obvious, but Judge Kaplan said he did not believe that Sam was at any risk for violence, which would mean he doesn't need to be in a maximum security facility of any sort. He also said that he believes he said specifically autism and social awkwardness, Judge Kaplan cited those things specifically, would put him at risk of being a target in prison from other inmates. He also said that the perception that Sam's very wealthy, whether or not that is true, I know some people think he has money smuggled or offshore, and maybe that's true, who knows, but that the perception that he would have money regardless of the reality would also or could also potentially make him a target in prison, so that he needs to be with other nonviolent offenders and people who are unlikely or less likely to be violent towards him. Now, that is in some ways a nod to things that Sam's mom wrote in her letter to Judge Kaplan. She expressed her serious concerns, obviously as a mother and in general, about how Sam would fare in prison. I think we can all agree on this. I think we all agree that Sam is probably at risk for some nefarious things in prison, just given his personality, given any number of things about Sam. Now, in terms of how long he will actually serve, of course, nobody actually knows, but there are a couple of different estimates that are floating out around there. A former federal prosecutor, a guy named Mitchell Epner, told CNN that the minimum that Sam could probably serve would be about 12 and a half years, about half his time, that if Sam got basically every jail time credit that he possibly could, in addition to a couple of other things, that it's possible he serves just 12 and a half years. I don't get the sense that people think that's likely, but this is just coming from one former federal prosecutor who claimed to CNN that it's technically possible. Now, Sam also gave an interview after his sentencing, a few days after his sentencing, to ABC News. Now, what was so interesting to me about this interview was not so much what Sam said, but what Sam didn't say. During his sentencing, Judge Kaplan had expressed concern that Sam would go out and continue to spin a story to the press and to the media. And in fact, it was one of the reasons that Judge Kaplan gave him this 25-year sentence. Judge Kaplan was very clear that he felt like he needed to, and I believe the exact words were, disable Sam from being able to go off and talk to the press and spin a new story and perhaps do additional harms to people. And while I largely agree with Judge Kaplan there, it does appear that Sam has perhaps learned from his past mistakes. All of the talking he did to press prior to his trial did not serve him well. And it's interesting because you had so many lawyers at the time, pundits, people on TV, saying like, this is a bad move. Sam going out and talking to all of these press outlets and giving an interview to seemingly anyone who will ask for one is not a good strategy. It is not a good idea. You know, his lawyers are like hanging their heads in their hands. And it felt like further evidence of perhaps Sam being arrogant or feeling like he knows better than everyone else, or he can defy the strategy that has been the best one for defendants for all of time, which is defendants just keep your mouth shut because anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. He is special enough that he can get away with talking to all these press outlets and it'll be fine. And what I think he learned was that that's not true. That in court, multiple things he said in interviews that he gave subsequent to his arrest were used against him. So in his conversation with ABC, first of all, it was brief, which is unlike Sam. And second of all, he clearly has an appeal on his mind. And he is going, I will not make the same mistakes twice here. I am not going to run my mouth in a way that is going to hurt me in court. I understand now why defendants keep their freaking mouths shut. This is speculation on my part. This is my surmising. And so he is now laser focused on his appeal and not making his appeal any harder for himself than it needs to be. So let's talk about some of the most interesting things he said. And again, he didn't say much in his conversation with ABC News because there are some contradictions here. First of all, Sam said that he is, of course, remorseful about what happened at FTX. Now, this is interesting because Judge Kaplan also specifically cited the fact that he does not believe that Sam has shown any remorse or has remorse for what happened. And again, Judge Kaplan used that, I hate this phrasing, feels wrong, but against Sam when he was sentencing him, saying, one of my concerns here is he's not really shown remorse. He feels bad that he made a bad bet, but he's not taking responsibility for any criminality. So Sam says, of course, he is remorseful about what happened at FTX. He thinks about it all the time. But he also then went on to say that he didn't think at any point that anything he was doing was illegal. So the full quote to ABC was, "I never thought that what I was doing was illegal, but I tried to hold myself to a high standard, and I certainly didn't meet that standard." So again, there's almost a contradiction here. I mean, you can skin this cat a number of different ways, but when Judge Kaplan said Sam didn't feel remorse, what I always interpreted Judge Kaplan to be saying, because Sam did say, I messed up. He did say any number of things where he was taking some amount of responsibility for things, is that Judge Kaplan felt Sam never took accountability or responsibility for the criminality, for the criminal acts. And I think here, again, you see Sam continuing to maintain that he didn't know that anything he was doing was illegal. And while I do think the whole situation at the time, while you're living through the FTX saga yourself as a person in it, probably felt a lot messier. It definitely felt messier, was messier than it looks to us from the outside, going back and knowing what we're looking for. Like when you tell the FTX story in hindsight, it's very clear which facts you're looking for. The prosecution was able to make this very clean story. I don't think it felt like that when you were living through it. So I actually do understand that Sam didn't believe he was being criminal to the extent that he appears criminal now in hindsight. But it's very hard to imagine that when they were spending customer deposits to any level, they didn't realize that there was something wrong with that, and that they were being far too reckless, far too careless, far too cavalier about how they handled customers' money. Now, essentially, the only other thing that Sam said to this ABC reporter is that his defense team, and bear in mind, this is a new defense team. He now has different counsel than the counsel he had during the trial, that his defense team plans to appeal later this year based on certain trial testimony that Sam says, quote, greatly misstated what actually happened. And also he's appealing on the fact that his defense was, quote, not allowed to introduce crucial evidence or put on important witnesses. And he apparently did not offer any specifics. Here's the key phrase. He did not offer any specifics explaining, this is Sam, apparently explained that he did not want to impact his defense team's legal strategy. And this was the line where I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Is Sam listening to lawyers now? Is Sam not just saying every thought that comes to his head to any media outlet that asks? I'm like, all right, maybe this boy can learn something. So that was striking to me. A little disappointing, because it is interesting as a somewhat media personality here to be able to cover the ramblings of Sam. But I give him credit. He apparently is learning. All right, folks, what did you think of Sam's statements and conversations after the trial? Would love to hear. Leave a comment below, subscribe, like. And with that, I'll see you next time.